I'm very excited about tonight, so I'm glad you're with us. Okay, well, before we get started, I want to talk about the elephant in the room. And I think you all know what that is because I got a number of emails after I sent out my compost video, and people were saying, "Hey, Donna, haven't you heard about the reconciliation bill?" And they were quite alarmed, thinking that we had to give up on notes. And I'm going, yeah, I've heard about it and I read it about it. And my understanding is that unless you're holding a note in a fund or in an LLC, it's quite to the contrary. I think this is the time to get into notes. And so the thing is that that bill, at least for right now, does not target individual notes that are held by your IRA. But I'll tell you what I did. Just to be sure, I mean, this is the time when you really need a trusted IRA advisor who knows the facts. So Carl will tell you, I called him up and I said, Carl, tell me, am I wrong here? Carl, of course, is a principal of Camaplan. Carl, are you still there?
I am. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can we put him on the screen or does everybody see him already?
Yeah, I pinned this video, so they should see you side by side.
Okay, awesome. Cool. Awesome. So Carl, what do you think, just in a nutshell, about this? Did I say it right?
Yeah, no, you said it right. I think the government's trying to limit people's investment choices as we go on, and I'll talk about that next week. I don't want to take away from your presentation today. I think they want to look into your bank accounts, limit your investment types, and just get more into our knickers. So we'll talk about those types of items and what we can do to help our cause if we think we need to change, which I do.
I think a lot of people do. So take note, next Thursday night, same time, same place, Carl is going to be on and we'll have a special Q&A. And he'll answer any questions about your IRA, but I know that a lot of the questions are going to be about this proposed, I would call it a money grab. It just makes me sick. But at any rate,
well, let me just say one more thing. I don't think the people in the individual notes, like you talked about just a minute ago, will be affected this year. But, you know, they'll start taking it away this year and then add on in the future. But right now, the individual notes is a good place for IRAs to be.
I agree. And don't you think that a lot of people, I know you mentioned this when we were on the phone, that a lot of people are pivoting to notes instead of other things that they've been in. If they've
Absolutely. Right. There's a lot more people looking for private lending and doing notes individually.
So we're going to share a lot of that at the Academy. Next week is one of our pre-Academy webinars, but at the actual Academy, actually Saturday night at the Academy, Carl, you'll be sharing then as well. So depending on what comes of this reconciliation bill, I mean, originally we were going to talk about some really cool things you could do with your Roth IRA, but we're just going to leave that open. And depending on what the situation is at that time, but I'm sure it will be very valuable information.
Right. And they've already missed one of the votes, last week. So we don't know where they're going to be next week, but hopefully we'll know by, maybe next week, but hopefully by the November timeframe.
That's what I'm thinking. So we all look forward to talking to you next week, Carl. Thanks for being here tonight as well.
No problem. Thank you, Donna, for the invite.
Absolutely. Okay, so tonight I want to share with you, it's one of my favorite strategies. And the reason it's one of my favorites is because it's like one of the quickest ways and the easiest ways that you can grow your IRA. And I actually had one of my students who last year during the stimulus plan time, she got a $35,000 SBA loan. And she said, look, is there a way that I can use this 35,000 to grow my IRA? And of course I said, yes, absolutely. I can help you with that. But hold on a second. What if you don't have any money to start with? Because I know some of you are thinking, wait a minute, I don't have a SBA loan. I don't have $35,000. Now I'm going to ask you a question, and all of you should be able to shout it out. If you need quick cash, what do? Flip a note. It's what I teach. Like just about every talk that I have, I talk about how if you need cash quickly, all you have to do is flip a seller carryback note. Now, if you are new, if this is the first time you're on one of my webinars, go through any of my material. I explain it in depth, and you will see how you could easily flip a seller carryback note, and you can do that in your self-directed IRA, okay? And so that would give you the cash to start, all right? So I just wanna make sure everybody understands, not having money in your IRA is not an excuse not to do this, okay? Okay, so what I wanna share is my $100,000 recycling plan. And this is not the first time that I did it. Actually, my very, very good friend, Mark Halpern, he and I were brainstorming, and I was telling me, you got to do some notes. And he said, Donna, you know, if I gave you so much money, how long would it take you? What could you do? Could you grow it to 100,000 in a year? How would you do that? And I said, well, I'd buy a note, I get an early payoff, and then I'd go buy another note, I get an early payoff on that. And one of the caveats was that at the end of the year, the money had to be cash in the account. None of this, oh, it's worth 100,000, but you got to cash it in. And so I'm telling him, just, do it over again, do it over again. He said, oh, it's $100,000 recycling plan. So it was born right then and there. But not only would it work for you, it will work. And this is what I told my student, who we're calling Stella, just for privacy reasons. So here we go. Let's see. So here is what we're going to do. The way the plan works, we're going to use the $35,000 cash that she has available to buy a discounted note. And then once she buys it, then she's going to help the borrower to refinance. And let's face it, like, this is the best time to refinance. I know people who have gotten loans, first-time home buyers, not even refinancing, but I can't believe that they ever qualified for a loan. I mean, they are giving money away. And so I feel like it's one of those times where if you can fog a mirror, you can get a loan. I hope that's not the case, though. Last time that didn't work out so well. But seriously, help the borrower to refinance and you get paid off. And then you recycle the money and you just do it all over again. And we're going to do this 3 times in 1 year. And when the third note pays off, you will have grown $35,000 into $100,000. Okay. Now, time out. Before we go through that scenario, I want to talk to you about why this works. People think that this is like, there's no way. Donna, you can't take 35,000 and grow it into 100,000 in a year. Well, there's a very specific reason why this works. And a lot of people do not realize it. It is not some sophisticated strategy or anything like that. It's just plain and simple. The fact is that when you are buying seller carryback notes, there are 2 profit centers. Most everybody thinks about the interest that the borrower pays. And for that reason, a lot of times they're not very appealing to people. And the thing is, I mean, they're thinking, oh, so I get 7 or 8%. But what they don't realize is there is a second profit center that a lot of people don't think of. And that is the discount that you negotiate when you buy the note. Seller finance notes are always sold at a discount. So if you've got a $100,000 note, you might buy it for $90,000 or $80,000 or $70,000. And the less that you pay for it, obviously, the more money you're going to make. And so it is that discount that you negotiate right up front that allows you to get totally amazing, phenomenal rates of return. And I've heard people say, well, so what if you make 95% on your money? You know, what really matters is how much cash you're putting into the account. Well, for anybody who's ever thought that, this webinar is for you, because I'm going to show you how you can take cash in the pocket in your IRA, 35,000 to 100,000 in a year. Okay, so it goes hand in hand. If you make higher yields, you're going to make more money. Okay, so there's two things you need to know. The larger the discount, the faster you get to the 100,000. I mean, that's pretty obvious. And secondly, the long-term notes usually give you the deepest discounts. So, like, for example, like there's a lot of notes, especially if somebody's shopping around and you're trying to be really competitive. And so we use our minimum 5% discount where we're going to offer 95 cents on the dollar. Well, you could certainly do that in your IRA, and you could certainly put that 5% in, but then it's not going to grow as quickly as if you put 30,000 in because you bought it at a 30% discount or something like that. So keep in mind, like what I do actually do is the notes that are like just a minimum discount, those are the ones that I flip for cash, and that's what I live off of. But the notes where I can buy them at a steep discount, those are the ones that I want to go into my IRA, because those are the ones where I can really have some fun with them and negotiate this early payoff and get a lump sum of money, and I can really grow my IRA quickly. Okay, so are you ready? Before we actually get into Stella's deal, because I'm going to walk you through that, I'm going to show you the exact numbers. But before I do that, I want to do a quick example, just a generic example, so that you can see that this really will work. Okay, so let's say that you buy a $50,000, you buy a $50,000 note for $35,000. That would be a 30% discount. Now, you might say, Donna, how often do you get those? Well, I just got under contract today 5 seller carryback notes, and they range between a 25% and a 31% discount. Those are going to be awesome notes for an IRA. I'm trying to decide if I should keep it for my own IRA or share them with somebody else. But again, you look at each deal, and if it's just a small discount, just flip that and keep the money and live off of it, or whatever you want to do. Just add it to your IRA, okay? But you save the steep discounted notes to do this particular program, okay? So you buy this $50,000 note for $35,000, and you get an early payoff on that. Now you have $50,000 to work with. Okay, so now that you've got $50,000, you could buy a $71,000 note at a 30% discount. So buy that note, negotiate an early payoff on it. Now you've got $71,000 in your self-directed IRA. So now you could buy a $101,000 note at a 30% discount for your $71,000. So in 1 year, if you do these 3 transactions in 1 year, you could take your $35,000 and you could grow it into over $100,000 simply by buying a note, negotiating an early payoff, help them to refinance. Okay, you call them up and you say, you know, interest rates are real low right now. You know, why don't I help you to save some money? I know a mortgage broker that could help you to refinance your note. You get the early payoff, you recycle that money and put it back into another larger note. You work with that borrower, get them to pay off. When they pay off, you recycle that money And now you've got even more money to work with, and you do it one last time, recycle that money. And I mean, depending on how much of a discount you get, you could do it in 3 times, you could do it in 5 notes, whatever it takes. But do you see how that works? And the thing is, it's not some tricky, sophisticated thing that you have to figure out. This is just basic math. I mean, if you buy something for less than it's worth and it pays off, your rate of return is going to go up. Okay, so it's just a basic fact of how the discounted notes work. And this is all taking into account the time value of money, which I explain in great detail in the Academy media sets and in the Note Buyer's Master Guide. But what I want you to see that it is extremely realistic that in 1 year, you could turn $35,000 into $100,000. Is everybody with me on that? Okay. So now what I want to do is I would like to go through 3 notes, and I want to show you the numbers on it. If you are not familiar with the calculations, don't worry about, oh, do I put this in N? Do I put this in I? I want you to see the process, okay? Get the overview of it and understanding of how it flows. That's what I want you to take away from tonight. We are going to have a pre-academy calculator workshop. That's coming up here in a couple of weeks. And at that webinar, I'll take questions and we'll really work, and I'll show you the 4 steps. And that's when you can really focus on actually learning the calculations. Tonight, I want you to follow along so that you see that this is really true and real and very, very doable. Okay. So let's look at the first note. Stella is going to buy a for $35,000, including costs. Okay, because that's all she's got. She's going to buy her first note. And so she gets this note under contract for $34,000 plus closing costs. She figures will be about $1,000. This note has a current balance of $51,295 on it. It's written at 5% interest, and it is payable in 262 monthly payments of $322.09. Okay, so I want to show you, did everybody see that? Okay. Now, if you have been a student of mine, you know that on every note deal, I always do my 4 infallible steps. So I am going to do the 4 infallible steps on each one of these 3 notes so that you can see how I came up with the numbers. Okay, so the first thing that I do, the first step is we always want to verify the payment. So do you see? Thank you for fixing that for me, Matthew. We're talking about the original note, okay, was $60,000. So that's going to go into present value. That's the beginning of the note. And we make that a negative sign because somebody lent that person $60,000. So looking at it from the view of the lender, it was out of the lender's pocket. So that will be negative. So we're going to put negative 60,000 into PV, 5% into interest. And this was amortized over 360 months. We put 0 into future value because at the end of the loan, it's all paid off, so nothing is left. And when we solve for payment, indeed, it does match what we were told, that the payment is $322.09. Okay. So next, we would calculate a balloon, but just to keep the calculation simple, I did not use any notes with a balloon on this example. Okay. So we'll move on to line 3, and this is where we calculate the current balance. Well, 98 payments have been made. So to find the current balance, we're going to leave all these other numbers right in there. Don't erase the calculator, okay? All you're going to do is just put 98 into N, and that will wipe out the 360 and replace it with 98. We leave these numbers in, press FV, and you find out that the current balance is indeed $51,296. Okay. Now, this is my famous line where we calculate the present value of the remaining. And this is like, I've never seen anybody else do this, but for me, it was what was needed so that I could, my thought process was correct. And so this is where I'm putting in the remaining number of payments that we're buying. So 360 minus 98 is 262. We keep our 5%, we keep our payment amount, future value is 0. If you press PV and solve for the present value, do you notice anything really cool there? Do you see that the present value of these 262 monthly payments is the same thing as the current balance? Okay, two different ways of calculating the same point on the timeline. So this sets us up. This is what we're buying. So if we invest $34,000 in buying the note, now this is besides the $1,000 in closing cost. If you buy this note for $34,000, that's money out of our pocket as the lender. So that's going to be negative. So we put 34,000 into PV and we solve for I, and we find out that our rate of return is actually 10.10%. Okay, so what does that mean? Do you notice that the borrower is only paying 5%? But because we're buying this at a discount, that discount that we negotiated, figuring it over time, okay, over the remaining number of payments, that increases our rate of return. So our actual rate of return on this is over 10%, even though the borrower is only paying 5%. So you buy this note and you call the borrower and you help them to refinance. And let's say that might take you 3 months to do, okay? So now you need to calculate, what is the borrower's payoff? Well, when you bought the note, 98 payments had been made. And 3 months have gone by, so you have collected 3 monthly payments. So 101 payments have been made. We go back to the original amount of the loan because we're trying to figure out what's the borrower's payoff. So they borrowed $60,000 at 5% interest. They've made 101 payments of $322. We solve for FV and we find out that after they make, immediately upon making that 101st payment, the balance owed is $50,970. So they're going to write you a check for $50,970 plus that third payment. Okay, we're not forgetting the third monthly payment. You're going to collect that as well. So what did you have invested? You had $34,000 your purchase price, and then $1,000 we said in cost. So we're going to deduct your investment amount, your total including expenses, and we find out that your net profit is $15,970. But that's not all, because you had the 3 payments of $322.09. So we're going to add those in, and we find out that your total profit is $16,936. That's not a bad payday, is it? That's real cash in your IRA, okay? But let's look at what your rate of return is. How do you calculate your rate of return? You need to put the amount of money that you invested, and then you put in everything you received, and you solve for I, for your interest rate, your rate of return. So let's do that. So you invested a total of $35,000. So we're going to make that negative because that was money out of your pocket. So we put negative $35,000 into PV. You collected 3 monthly payments of $322.09 plus the $50,970 payoff check. If you solve for I, look at your rate of return, 170%. Where else are you going to find that kind of a return? And You didn't even have to deal with the tenants, the trash, and the toilets. You called the borrower to negotiate and help them to refinance, but you didn't even have to deal with the actual property. I mean, this is why I love notes. And so someone could say, well, it sounds good at 170%, but you got to look at the real money. I just made $17,000 in 3 months. And I didn't even have to lift a hammer or clean out a toilet or unload a house full of bed bugs or anything like that. Isn't that sweet?
I'll take one of those, Donna.
Okay. I think a lot of people would. Okay. So this is why I get so excited. And you know, we probably have a lot of landlords on this call tonight and talking about the tenants, the trash, and the toilets. You know, this might be your time to get into notes. I mean, at what season of your life are you in? Are you tired of the rat race? Are you tired of people using the, you know, you can't evict me, the moratorium issue and all of that? And considering that this is a seller's market, maybe this is the time that you ought to think about selling some of those properties and investing in some notes. And you don't have to get everybody to refinance. If I had not called, and I'm saying this is an example, it's not a real deal, but if I did not call and negotiate an early payoff, if I had just sat back and collected monthly payments to the very end of the note, the rate of return would have been over 10%. And it would be secured by real estate. It's not, you're not investing in the stock market. You've got real property as security. You see, if you want a passive investment, what you want to do is control the property without owning it. Because if you own it, you've got to deal with it. And that's what this is about. It's about having the security of the real estate without having to deal with it. You only deal with it if it were to go into default, and that's to get your money back. That's the only time you're going to deal with it. So think about that if you're a landlord, because I think it's very timely. And you know, I really believe that a lot of times you can take what would have been a bad thing and it can really work out to be a blessing in disguise. And God forbid, I mean, this proposed reconciliation bill is horrible, 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 horrible. And I think for a lot of people that, you know, particularly those who have 10 million or more in their IRA, for some people, it's going to be devastating to them. For other people, it might be an eye opener to say, hey, wait a minute, maybe it's time for me to move out of owning properties and instead invest in notes. The key is when you invest in your IRA in a note, you make sure that your IRA takes title to the individual note. Don't hold it in an LLC. Don't invest in a fund that is all secured by notes. You know, I'm saying if this bill goes through, normally those are great investments, but God forbid if this bill goes through, that would be a problem. Okay. But as of now, your IRA can still invest in individual notes. And for years, many of you have heard me say this because people have begged me to start a fund. And I've said, no, one note, one mortgage. It is the safest way to go. And I never thought in a million years that it was going to help people not to get devastated by this proposed bill. Okay, so moving on. Now you have $51,936 to reinvest instead of just your $35,000. Okay, so you had $35,000 to begin with. You have $16,936 in profit, and now you have $51,936 to turn around and redeploy. Okay, so there we go. So now we're ready to buy the second note. Okay, so this one since we have 51,000 to work with, we're going to buy this note for $50,736 plus our costs. So let's say you can buy the following note for $50,736 plus we'll estimate the cost to be $1,200. It has a current balance of $76,122. The interest rate is 5%, compounded monthly, and it is payable in 300 monthly payments of $445. Okay, first thing we're going to do is verify the payment. So the original note called for 360 monthly payments. It was amortized over 30 years. This was the original note amount, the $82,895, 5% interest payments. If we solve for payment, we confirm that the payment amount is $445. Okay. I always check that. You know what happens sometimes? They might round the payment up and it throws everything off, things like that. So that's why I always go back to the very beginning. That's why I always check the original note. I read the original note and I plug those terms into this note, into my 4 steps. Because sometimes when you're talking to a note seller, they tell you things off the top of their head and they're not necessarily true. All right, the second step would have been a balloon, but no balloon here. So now we want to calculate the current balance. 60 payments have been made. So all we need to do is put 60 into N. We leave our 5%, we leave PV the same, payments the same. We simply press FV, solving for the future value, and we find out that if someone borrowed $82,895 at 5% interest, and they made 60 payments of $445, then the remaining balance is $76,122. Now we're going to flip this over and make this our present value. We want to know what's the value of the payments that are remaining. What is today's value of the payments we are buying? Okay, so if there were originally 360 monthly payments and 60 have been made, that means we have 300 payments left for us to buy. 5% interest, payment amount is $445, and at the end of the term, nothing is owed. So if we solve for PV, we find out that the present value of these 300 payments is $76,122. And lo and behold, that is the same thing as the current balance. That is our infallible checkpoint. That's what I always look for. That's why I always do the 4 steps. Okay, so let's say that you're going to invest $50,736 on the purchase of this note. Remember that we're going to make that negative because that's money out of your pocket, looking at it from the view of the lender, that you're going to be the lender. So we're going to put that into PV. We leave our payment amount and future value the same. It's 300 payments. All of that stays the same. The only thing we're changing is the amount that we are investing. When we put that into PV, we solve for I, and we find out that that would give us a 10% interest rate or 10% rate of return. Okay. Okay, so you buy this note. That's a pretty good deal. So do you see that if you don't negotiate an early payoff, that you could sit back and for the next 300 months, just collect $445 a month, and you'd be making 10% interest on your money. Okay. And it would be secured by probably a single family residence. Okay. So if they didn't pay you, then you could negotiate and get a deed in lieu of foreclosure, or you would foreclose and take the property. Then you could sell the property and you probably wind up with a whole lot more money than what they owe you. If you do your homework like I teach you to, that's what would happen. Okay, so you bought this note, you call up the borrower and you help them to refinance 6 months later. Okay, so the borrower's payoff, we need to calculate that. We go back to the original terms of the note. So our original loan amount was the $82,895. So we put that in PV, negative. Okay, 5% interest. the payments are $445 a piece. Our N, we knew that 60 payments had already been made at the time we bought the note, and we have collected 6 monthly payments. Okay, so we put 66 into N, and when we solve for future value, we find out, this is what this tells us: if somebody borrows $82,895 at 5% interest, and they make 66 payments of $445, then the remaining balance owed is $75,347. Okay. Now deduct our total investment, including the costs, and we find out that the net profit on this is $23,411. But that's not all, because you collected 6 monthly payments. Okay, so you collect those payments, and then your total profit would be $26,081. And if you want to know what your rate of return is, let's look. You're going to get a check. First, how much did you invest? You put $51,936 out of your pocket into PV. You collected 6 monthly payments of $445, and you got a final payoff check of $75,347. And of course, that third payment was added into that. Okay, and so if you solve for I, you find out that your rate of return on this one note was 86%. And again, you never dealt with the tenants, the trash, and the toilets. No drunk contractors that didn't finish the work, no bed bugs, no building orders, none of that. Okay, that's what I'm talking about. These are the kind of investments that I like to do. And so now you have $78,000 to reinvest instead of your original 35. So just add in, you started on this one with 51,936. There's your profit, the 26,000. So now you have $78,000 in your IRA. In 2 deals, you've taken your $35,000 in your IRA, and you've taken that up to $78,000 in 9 months' time. Do you see that? So let's buy one more note. Okay. So now you're going to take $76,817 of that money and buy another note. We're just leaving that little cushion there for the expenses. So this note has a current balance of $98,469. The interest rate is 6.75% compounded monthly, and it is payable in 343 monthly payments of $648.60. Okay. So doing our 4 steps, the first thing we do is we verify the payment amount. We look at the promissory note and we see that the original loan amount was $100,000. We make that negative because it's out of the lender's pocket. We put 6.75% in for the interest rate. It was amortized over 30 years. So we have $360 in N, 0 in future value because it was totally paid off after 30 years. We solve for payment and we find out that our payment amount is $648.60, which is what we were told. So we're good there. There is no balloon on this. So our next step is to calculate the current balance. So 17 payments have already been made on this note. So all we need to do is plug 17 into N. We leave these numbers all in there. We solve for FV. And what this tells us, that if someone borrows $100,000 at 6 3/4 interest rate, and they make 17 monthly payments of $648.60, the remaining balance would be $98,469. Okay. So now we're going to do my favorite line, and we're going to calculate the present value of the payments that we are buying, the present value of the remaining payments. So We know that originally there were 360 monthly payments. We deduct the 17 that they already made, and we are looking at buying 343 payments. So we put that into N. We leave our interest rate the same, the payment amount. We do go back and put 0 in future value, because after we collect 343 payments, 0 that will be left. It will be totally paid off. All we do here is we solve for PV. And what this tells us is that with a note that has 343 monthly payments of $648.60, and the note is written at 6.75% interest, the present value of those 343 payments is $98,469. And yes, indeed, that is the same amount as the current balance. Okay. Isn't that cool that that works like that? I mean, maybe I'm just really a nerd, but I really get off on those kind of things. Whenever I can find something like that, that confirms things and like it just fits in perfectly. I mean, that's so neat that you can check your work. And inevitably, when I don't do that, I make a mistake somewhere, you know, and so I just always do it. It also gives you a visual. Instead of just thinking of things in your head, it's right there and you can see it. Okay, so we said that you're going to buy this note for $76,817. So we're going to put that into PV here, make it negative because it's money out of your pocket. Okay, and we've got our 343 payments of $648.60. All we have to do is solve for I. And this tells us if we invest $76,817 in a note that has 343 monthly payments left of $648.60, then our rate of return would be 9.44%. So again, if we did not work with the borrower and get them to refinance, and we just did nothing but buy this note and sit back and let our IRA collect these payments, our IRA would have a rate of return on this note of 9.44%. But if you want your IRA to maximize its rate of return, then you want to encourage the borrower to pay off early. Okay. Do you see why that's true? Because you negotiated a discount on this. Okay, your discount is roughly $22,000 in that neighborhood. So let's say over a $20,000 discount, and that $20,000 discount is payable over 343 months. That discount's not going to go away. That is built in upfront when you buy the note. The question is, are you going to get that over 343 months, or are you going to get it sooner? Now, imagine if you get that sooner instead of having to wait for it, what happens to your rate of return? It goes up. And again, it's nothing sophisticated or difficult, or, you know, it's just math. That if you buy a note at a discount and it pays off early, because you're realizing that discount earlier than what was anticipated, your rate of return will go up. And the sooner you can get it to pay off, the more it's going to go up. Okay, so you buy this note. You call the borrower, you help them to refinance, and let's say that takes 3 months to do. So we're going to first calculate the borrower's payoff. We go back to the original note. We put in our negative 100,000 PV. We've got our interest rate back to the 6.75, what was written on the note. 17 payments had already been made when we bought the note, and now we collected 3, so we're going to put 20 into N, and we've got our payment amount. So what this tells us, if someone borrows $100,000 at 6.75% interest, and they make 20 payments of $648.60, the remaining balance immediately upon making that 20th payment is $98,183. So you're going to get a check for that much, plus you're going to get the third monthly payment. So you had a total investment, including your expenses, of $78,017. So this means that your net profit was $20,166 plus those 3 monthly payments. Okay. And so your total profit is $22,112. Okay. What's your return? We're going to put in what you actually, at first, what you invested. And we said that you invested a total, including your cost, $78,017. And you collected 3 monthly payments of $648.60 plus this final check. And if you just simply solve for I, your rate of return on this note was 105%. And it's not just about the rate of return. You have now grown the $35,000 originally in your IRA to over $100,000. On this one, you started out with $78,000. You collected over $22,000 in profit, which now gives you over $100,000 to reinvest. So you have just grown your $35,000 nest egg into $100,000 in 1 year. That is the $100,000 recycling program. And that's just like what I did on my compost pile. It's just that instead of adding 3 monthly payments and a discount, I was putting other stuff in it. But do you see how you can start with a small amount? You buy a note, you get that payoff, go buy a bigger note, get that payoff, go buy a bigger note, get that payoff. Now, you might be wondering what would happen if you bought one of these and you went and you called to borrow and they said, I don't want to refinance. I don't want to fool with it. I don't have time. I got other things going on. What would you do then? Would you be stuck with it? Heck no. All you have to do is turn around and flip it to somebody else. Since I want to maximize my cash, I don't want to just sit back and what did we say this was? 9%, I think is what we said. I don't want to sit back and just make 9.44%. So what I would do is I would flip this, and we know that we can flip it because we bought it at a discount. We see it right here. Okay, there's roughly a 22,000 something discount there, and you've only collected 3 of those payments, so you got plenty of room. Flip it out to somebody else, make a little cash, and now move on. Go buy another note and work with them and get them to refinance. So you can't get stuck with it. Not if you've done your homework, just like what I'm showing you here, and you've bought it at a discount. Isn't this exciting? Does everybody like it as much as I do? Good, Elaine. I'm glad to see that you do. I just love this kind of stuff. But that's why I'm so excited, because what does happen with a lot of people that I talk to is they start out and they might buy one note in their IRA and then they never do anything again. And it's like they just let it sit there and kind of flounder. You need to have a plan. First of all, you need the knowledge. You need to know how to do this. And then you put together a plan. If it's not this, maybe you have a different plan that you want to work. This happens to be the easiest one that I know of where you can really grow your IRA quickly. Now, I teach some other things you can do using collateral assignments and options and other things like that. But this is a real simple thing. You don't need any fancy documents. It's just simple, buy the note, help them pay off, start all over again. Okay. So do we have any questions?
Hey, Donna. Yeah, we got a bunch of yeses in the chat. Zaya said it's a perfect example of velocity of money in note vesting. I agree with that. Let's see.
Yes.
Ryan had a question here. I said, to make this work, the borrower must refinance. Any tips on how to convince the borrower to refinance?
Well, I think it's a good idea for you to have a mortgage broker that you can actually refer them to. So whatever area you're working in, like if you're doing a bunch of notes in Texas, find some people who can do Texas notes, and they don't have to have an office in Texas. There are a lot of national mortgage broker companies, regional, but get yourself a mortgage broker that can handle different types of borrowers. And that can make all the difference in the world. What I would do is I would show them how much money they're going to save. I mean, if they could get a 3% loan or something like that right now, and they're paying 6.75, I would calculate out those payments, and I would show them how much they save every month. And then I would add up the 343 remaining payments and say, that's this much. It's this many thousands of dollars that you're going to save. Hey, look, if you will simply fill out this 1003 application, I will help you with it. A lot of people are afraid of the paperwork. That scares them to death. They are petrified. And if you say, look, if you will just cooperate with me, I will help you put this all together. I would need you to get me your W-2s. I would need your proof of income. I would need, your last 60 days of pay stubs. Everybody, they may not work. They may be retired. So then they need their social security statements and stuff. And you tell them what you need. You say, get those together for me. We'll sit down. We'll fill out the 1003 application together. I'll take you, or I will call the mortgage broker, make an appointment for you. And that's what you do. And then once you connect to the mortgage broker is pretty much going to take over in most cases. But what I have done multiple times for people is I just say, look, these folks, they don't even have email. So I'm your connection here. You tell me whatever they need. I'm happy to contact them. I'll call them up and make sure I get what you need. And I do that. It's worth it. It is worth it to get these kind of payoffs. Now, somebody else asks, how do I know if there's a high probability for the borrower to actually, this says qualify for a loan. I was thinking that they might be willing to. As far as qualifying, it is really amazing what people can qualify for nowadays. But when we buy the note, we're going to at least ask about the credit report. So what I normally do is, I used to belong to the credit bureau, but then when I moved my office home, you have to have brick and mortar. So I was no longer a member of the credit bureau. So what I do is when I call the borrower, I tell them, hey, I'm going to need to check your credit. The best way, if I were to pull your credit, I can't, but if I were to pull your credit, it would ding your credit score by 4 points. But a better way to do it, hey, do you have Credit Karma? Everybody has Credit Karma. I'm not kidding you. Everybody does. And they go, oh, yeah. I said, can you just pull up your score and just take a screenshot of your score? So obviously, if it comes in at 486 or something, then I know most likely they're not going to be able to refinance. But heck, if they paid on time for 3 years, you don't think that's a good note? I would simply sell it to somebody else, and they would get a very nice return based on the fact that the credit score is low. So I would look at the credit score, but what really determines whether I keep it or sell it is the borrower's interview, because I can find out if they're already leaning that way, that they're going to refinance. Oh, great. Well, then I can help you. Or if I can just get a feel for what I think they would do. But the thing is, even if you buy the note and it doesn't refinance, collect a couple months of payments and then sell it to somebody else. At any time, you can turn around and sell it to somebody else. Other questions?
All right, let's see. Tom wants to know, where do I find the notes?
Where do you find the notes? We have a pre-academy webinar coming up on that. So I will tell you all about that then. But the short answer is, a lot of people use direct mail. If you're already a student, you should go to the stimulus plan. That is my most thorough teaching so far on marketing for notes. But direct mail, whether postcards or letters, we have a really neat program for direct mail. And networking is the best way. Like, if you are serious about getting into the note business, what you need to do is just immerse yourself in the surroundings, investors and real estate investors and note investors. And, join your local RIA, be a part of any exchange meetings, any haves and wants meetings. You'll get a lot of business from there. And then not to mention the referrals. There are a lot of people who know people who are holding notes. That could be title companies, mortgage brokers, builders, contractors, attorneys, divorce attorneys or probate attorneys are really good. I go through all of that, and we will definitely have that coming up before the Academy. So, hey, you know what I'd like to do? I'd like to tell everybody about my Academy real quick, and then I will be happy to take more questions, okay?
Right.
So this year's Academy is going to be really different. I try to get people's feedback after the Academies, and it was really funny, but do you know that the majority of the people liked the virtual Academy better than the in-person? And they love the idea of getting together to network and everything. But they said, honestly, for learning purposes, to be able to spread everything out on their desk, leave their stuff there, run down and take care of the kids, run to the bathroom, everything's still there, to not have to pay for hotels, to not have to get on a plane. And so they really liked that. But we also heard that 4 days was pretty long to be sitting in front of a laptop. So, and they loved, last year I had a lot of hands-on training, and we did some really cool things. And that was like one of their favorite parts. So this year, what we're doing is we're doing 2 full days. It will be on Saturday and Sunday, November 13th and 14th. On Friday night, we're going to have like a networking meet and greet. And believe it or not, you can actually do that virtually. We had a great time last year with it. And in fact, one night I even just got off and just let everybody else network. I think they felt more comfortable since I wasn't a part of it for the networking. But no, we'll have our little get together on Friday evening as well. So this is going to be very hands-on interactive learning. What we're going to do is we're going to take 10 sample notes, and they're pretty much notes that I've gotten in, and I've just changed addresses and stuff like that because of privacy reasons. So we're going to take 10 notes and go through them and evaluate them and formulate an offer on them. And so we'll break up into, how they have breakout rooms. I don't know if you've all done that, but last year we got together in little groups of 6, 8 people. And so you don't have to feel pressure that if you don't know how to do it, it's okay, because somebody in your group can help you. So that worked out really well. So we're going to do that again on Saturday. You're going to learn by reviewing deals, these simulated deals, and actually creating quotes. I want you to learn how to identify a good note and how to create a quote. Know what you should quote for. Like I mentioned, the breakout groups. And what's really cool that I think people commented on a lot was to learn my thought process. Why I like this note, why I don't like this note. Oh, watch out for this. When you're actually analyzing potential deals, all kinds of things come up that you wouldn't necessarily think to put in a book, or something like that. So there's so much more that you can learn when you're actually role playing and going through things. Sunday morning, I'm going to walk you through a complete note flip. What is that? That means we're going to take one of the quotes that you did on Saturday, okay, and we're going to go through the entire process of getting it under contract, gathering the documents. We'll go over all the documents you need to get, ordering the drive-by appraisal, dealing with the title company and setting up the title work, calling the insurance people and getting the insurance changed. And then on our easy as 1, 2, 3 coaching, we use my investors, but you need to know how to work with the investors, because the idea is that you're going to eventually have your own investors, hopefully sooner rather than later. Okay. So I'm going to walk you through the entire thing and show you how I orchestrate the closing with the title company, whether it be a simultaneous close or an assignment of contract. We'll go through both of those. So that was another request from people. Can you show us start to finish? What's one whole deal look like? So that's what we're going to do on Sunday morning. And then Sunday afternoon, the new option process as an alternative to the partial purchase, that was a huge hit. And so I am teaching that again on Sunday afternoon. And again, we'll break out into, do some breakout rooms and have you fill out some of the forms yourself so you can learn how to do that. I do have a comment about that. So in case, if you have seen this, you would know, basically, I have developed a very exclusive way to use options in place of the partial purchase agreement. There are some states that are very unfriendly towards partials, shall we say. Ohio is one of them, okay? And after studying the actual written law and talking to multiple attorneys, I came up with a way to use an option as opposed to buying part of the note. The problem with buying part of the note is two people own the same note at the same time. They would not buy the fact that, okay, well, he owns the first 33 payments and I own the next, 200 payments. They didn't like that. As far as they were concerned, they were connected. So with the option agreement, it clearly defines exactly who owns what. And this took me well over a month to write. Multiple attorneys looked at it. I had a couple people say, oh, great, thanks for the idea. I know how to do options. I do them all the time. I'll just use my option agreement. You're going to be a fool if you do. I will just tell you that, because it is the specific language that I developed over time in trial and error and research that makes it stand up against the laws. So that it's clearly defined that two people don't own it at the same time. And there's lots of nuances to that. And if you aren't familiar with it, you wouldn't know that, hey, this could be a problem. And the reason I know it is because I've been doing notes for 35 years, okay? So I'm not saying that it's 100% foolproof. I'm not an attorney. I can't guarantee anything. But based on my experience and my research and the attorneys that I have had look at it, and actually the notes that I have done, I think this is far superior to any other way of buying part of a note. Okay, but you need to use my documents, and that's what we're going to go over on Sunday afternoon. So to move on here, it's 2 days of hands-on training that will empower you to close more note deals, because that's what it's all about, make some quick cash, and build a financial legacy. And you're going to do all of that from the comfort of your own home. So we have a special going on, and that is that you can get, and for the early bird price tonight, you can sign up for $9.97. That saves $300 off of it. And I'm doing a very cool thing this year. I think everybody's going to love it. Last year, I did 4 days of training and 3 months of coaching. Do you think you might rather have 2 days of hands-on, concentrated training, not listening to lectures, but really learning how to work the notes, and 6 months of coaching so that you have time to go out into the world, do some notes, have some coaching? I see people clapping. I thought, you know what, that's a whole lot. I think that is a recipe for success. I think far more people will be closing deals on this program. So that's what it is. It's normally $12.97, but through November 1st, early bird special is $9.97, so you can save $300. If you are a new student, you do need to have my master guide system, because I will make references and you have to have that material. So if you don't have it, you can add the master guide system for only $9.97. So that's a bundle price of $19.94. So it's 2 days of hands-on coaching or hands-on training, 6 months of coaching, and you get all of that for only $997. And Matthew, you don't know this, but I was thinking right before I got on here, as a special bonus, if you sign up, let's say by Saturday at noon, If you sign up by Saturday at noon, I'm going to throw in my negotiating lessons. So Matthew, you need to make a note of that anybody who buys will also have the access to the audio classes. And those are really, really good negotiating classes. So I'm going to throw that in. If you buy, if you sign up, register for the Academy by noon on Saturday, and you can do that by going to notebuyeracademy.com. Okay.
And
Any
there's
questions?
there's a couple of you that are here that have signed up today, so we'll throw that in since.
Yes, definitely. Thank you for saying that. So any questions about the Academy, and then I'll go back to answering questions in general.
I don't see any in the chat. If you guys have a question about the Academy or the training or the content or what's entailed with the coaching, why don't you tell them a little bit about how the coaching works, Donna?
Oh, great. So the coaching, I call it my easy as 1, 2, 3 coaching. And you have 6 months to complete a deal, but the coaching doesn't physically start until you send me a deal. You do the marketing as I teach you how to do it. And when you do the marketing, when you find a note, you fill out the submission form. Now, this is the stuff that we're going to be going over intensely on Saturday at the Academy. So you fill out the submission form, you send it over to me. At that point, I'm going to spring into action. I will review the submission form. I don't know anybody else who does this, but what I do is I write out all the calculations for you so you can see my numbers. I write out exactly what to say to the note seller. I take the guesswork out. If there's any little nuances, hey, you might want to preface your quote with this, any negotiating tips, I actually put that on the quote sheet. And anything in red, you can literally read to the note seller. And so then basically you are the liaison with the note seller and I'm the liaison with the investor. So if your note seller says, yes, I'm good to go, then you get me a copy of the note. I create the note purchase agreement and send it to you. You get it signed, gather up documents, give them to me, and we'll get the appraisal, the title, all of that. We use my investor, so you don't even have to come up with the money to buy it. However, if you want to use your IRA to buy the note, we can work that out. And what would have been your profit can go in, we'll package that in with the note. We'll work out the numbers on that. So when we close the deal, we split the profits 50-50. So it is an awesome way for you to learn notes and make money at the same time. Okay.
Angie wanted to know, can we send commercial deals or do the deals have to be residential properties?
I will do commercial. I will tell you that because of COVID and all, like they're hesitant on restaurants, although I think that's coming around more. It just really depends on what the commercial property is. But by all means, I happen to like commercial properties. So I liked Zaya's comment about they're partial against partials. That's very true, Zaya. I see, Helen, you're a Canadian. I will tell you that about 25 years ago, I really went through this based on the Canadian retirement plan, and I am not up on that at all. So I cannot respond as far as investing in your IRA, but I have bought several notes. It's been a long time ago in Canada. Okay. So, but here's the thing. You can be in Canada and invest in US notes, even though, like, I don't want to coach you on Canadian notes because I'm not familiar with them. I can tell you anything you want to know practically about US notes. So what I would recommend, Helen, is that you can work from Canada, but buy US notes. And I would love to work with you on that.
Let's see here. I think we have some other general questions, or rather questions about the recycle plan.
Okay.
Let's see here. So Jill said, to help this method work, should you consider the big picture and only look for notes where the borrower has a good chance to refi after a fairly short time of seasoning?
No. you want to buy any notes where the note seller wants to sell. It's the difference is if it's one that they're going to refinance or pay off early, and it could be that they have the property for sale. It's not always that it has to be a refinance. I have one right now. The man knows that after he decided to sell the note, he found out that the property was listed, but he still wants to sell. And I'm thinking, man, in today's market, you know, this property is going to go quick. You want to just wait. But he said no. So the difference is that if you think it's going to pay off early, keep that note for yourself. If you don't think it's going to pay off early, simply flip it. You don't want to lose that deal. I'd rather make 5,000 or 8,000 on it than not make anything at all. Okay.
Nick had a helpful comment. He said, with notes in your IRA, you can do less and accomplish more.
Yes, that is
let's
exactly right.
Sharon asked, how will this work with the new legislation potentially putting restrictions on making money in the IRA?
Okay, that is something that Carl Fisher is going to talk about next week. The short version of it is what I said at the beginning of the call, and that is that for right now, based on the bill as it is proposed, as long as your IRA directly holds the note, so the note is not held within an LLC that is owned by the IRA, or it's not held in a fund where you own your IRA owns shares of it, then as long as the note is actually held by your IRA, this doesn't have any effect on it. Okay. And there are so many different things that you can do. Yes, this is the worst legislation I have ever seen regarding IRAs. It is a total money grab, and I pray that it does not go through. But there still is a lot of potential, and that's what Carl Fisher is going to talk about. Carl's principle of Camaplan, and I have to tell you, I deal with IRA companies all over the country because wherever the investor has their IRA, that's who I deal with. And hands down, Camaplan is the best IRA administrator, self-directed IRA administrator, for several reasons. One, what I love is Carl's been a note buyer for years before he ever even started Camaplan. So he totally understands our deals, but I love the way he has his office set up. They block out time in the morning to handle the phone calls. Like, it's so much easier to get a deal closed with them. And they actually call you instead of you're trying to, you're calling, hoping you can get through to somebody. That's not the case. Donna will call you and say, hey, checking in with you on this. We need this, this, and this. How's this looking? It's amazing at how quickly they can close, and you just don't get the red tape that you do with a lot of other companies. I highly recommend them. Plus, if you don't have an IRA, go to my website, thenotebuyer.com, and you should see a banner where you can sign up. And I know we get something free. Is it free setup? Maybe read on the website. But Carl's given my students a special, some kind of a special offer on there. But you'll be glad that you did. It can't go wrong. I highly recommend Camaplan.
Yeah, I think it's a steep discount on the setup and the transfer and stuff.
Oh, and the other thing that I love about Camaplan, they don't charge you fees until you actually invest in something. Like some of these places, like they're charging you monthly fees and you haven't even found a note. That's crazy. And that's not the way Camaplan does it. They're very, very fair. Highly recommend them.
All right, so we had two more questions and then we can move on.
Okay.
Let's see here. Elaine asked, so I'm assuming you've built a relationship with the borrower. How do you just flip the note to someone else? What happens to the relationship with the borrower?
Oh, that's a good question. I pretty much stay in touch with them for the first month or two. I'm like the transition person. So normally I make sure that they have the bank account number, they know where to send their funds to, and then I introduce them to the investor. We do a three-way call, And I say, this is Carol. She's a school teacher. She's holding your note in her IRA. And they love that it's an individual and not some big company and where they're just a number. So I try to keep everything very personable. I do have to tell you something funny since you asked this. So I did this transaction in May. It was probably the hardest note I ever had to do. It was a mess. It was a can of worms that no one else would have ever closed. And it was really a godsend for the borrower. Long story short, the holder of the note was spending the borrower's insurance escrow money. And like she would get a refund, and instead of it being deposited back into escrow, the note holder spent the money. And so then the bank, the underlying bank, increased the escrow. This borrower's payment went up by $500 in no time at all because of escrow. And so anyway, there's a whole bunch of other things going on. So I help her get this done. And she had trouble with the service company, okay? So I move her to a new servicer who is going to go nameless. I'm sorry, I'm not going to say it. And she got late charges when the payment had gone through. She got a notice of no insurance when they had collected a year's payment when they set it up in May. I mean, all these things happening. Last Saturday, I get a text from the borrower, and she says, she sent a screenshot. They had taken the payment out twice for October. And she tells me she is in Mexico with her children and has no access to funds. All because the servicer that I recommended had double charged her, taken the payment out twice. What would you do in that situation? It's Saturday morning, can't get a hold of anybody at the servicing company. Needless to say, I chased quick paid her $1,000. I'd worked with her for like 8 months or so. She was a really nice lady. I did that. I mean, all I could think of is what would it be like when my kids were little if I were in Mexico or wherever and no money, So I did that, and today she sent it back. I got the charges reversed, that one charge reversed, and she sent me the money back, and it's all good. But should I close that in May? This is October. I should not be dealing with that anymore, But because we had such a good relationship, and I felt like she was really relying on me for things, and I want to know that she's comfortable with it. So, but normally it doesn't go out that long. Normally it's just until the payments start coming in.
I don't know many note buyers that would do that, Donna.
I know.
So there's a few other questions. We'll just ask one more and then we'll catch the others on the other side of your examples here. Let's see, Vicky asked, can the note be held in a paper trust in the IRA?
I think we should defer to Carl. Is Carl still with us? I don't know if he's still on or not. If not,
I don't think Carl's on right now.
Okay, well, let's definitely ask that question, because I was wondering the same thing. I did not hear one way or another about trust. I heard specifically that if it was in an LLC or a fund, I did not hear any mention of trust. So I would tend to think it's okay, but don't go on that. Let's ask Carl and let's find out for sure. So next week, he will be on 7 o'clock Thursday night, and he will be answering all your questions.
All right, good to go, Donna.
Okay, so did we answer all questions?
We have 2 more questions. You want to answer them now, or? Okay, let's see. Melanie asked, when the interest rates are rising substantially higher, would the compost method not work for a time because they wouldn't be able to refinance because interest rates are going up?
Right now, most notes that I'm seeing are anywhere from 0. I did get a 0% interest note yesterday. 0 like to maybe 8%, sometimes 10%. It's such a wide range. And heck, I've been through all all different levels of interest rate. When I started, interest rate was 18%. You always have people that want to, well, you always have people who want to sell the note, but as far as the borrower refinancing, shoot, if their interest rate is lower than the going rate, then yeah, what's their incentive to refi? But that's not the case here, and I don't see that happening anytime soon. Okay.
All right. Muhammad asked, yeah, I was talking to some realtors at the beginning of the year. They said, oh yeah, the interest rates are going to start, going back up by September when school starts back up. And I didn't think so. And they sure aren't. Okay. So,
Well, even Matthew, even if they go up, they're so low right now. How long is it going to take to get up to 7 or 8% again? It's not going
Exactly.
to happen overnight. So man, time is now.
I
Don't
hear
miss
you.
out.
Let's see. Muhammad asked, Donna, what is your experience to getting a first deal within 4 months? How many hours to work each week? And how much of a monthly marketing budget do you recommend?
I get asked that and I don't have an answer. And the reason I don't have an answer is everybody is different. I have people that in their first batch of 300 letters, they close a deal. I have other people that have sent letters for 6 months and don't have a deal. And sometimes I'm able to determine what it is. Sometimes I had one fellow, I felt really bad for him. Like he had done a lot of mailings and he wasn't getting anything. And I said, send me a picture of your card, your postcard. I told him, I said, I am sorry to say this, but if you received this card, would you call the people? I said, because I would not call. I mean, it was ugly. It was, and come to find out what happened was, it was not the card he approved. I think the fonts at Vistaprint had gotten messed up, and like it was supposed to be this nice cursive handwriting, and instead it was like, what's the old typewriter, Courier? I mean, it was terrible, and it was not his fault. And I'm hoping that he was able to get some money back because clearly there was a mistake on that. But so sometimes I can figure out what caused the problems, but I don't know. What I recommend that you do, I would start with the direct mail. The postcards are real effective. I would start out with the postcards. I would try to mail people once a month. The more often that you touch them, the more likely they are to respond. So I would send out 1 or 2 postcards and then I would switch to letters. I would also really get into networking. If you are serious about being a note buyer, you need to immerse yourself in the business. You need to be where the notes are. And that is primarily amongst real estate investors, landlords. So get involved in your local RIA, be at any meetings, the haves and wants. Make yourself known as someone who buys notes. When you do find a note, stand up in front of your group and offer it to the group so that they can see that you're real. Go to any place that you can go in virtual. I'm talking about virtual. I sold 5 rental properties for somebody. It's a long story I don't want to get into, and it was virtual on a haves and wants call. And you can do the same thing with notes. I hope that helped.
Awesome. Yeah, Mohammed said thank you for answering. Umessi asked, when does the 6 months coaching begin?
It begins the Monday after the academy.
And you are planning, Donna, on doing a follow-up Q&A? I don't think we had mentioned that yet. But.
Yes, we are. Yes, I just for the sake of brevity, I didn't go into a lot of the details. You'll notice that normally our webinars, our weekly webinars leading up to the academy are usually just for academy attendees. But because we were so late in starting the marketing, I decided to open it up to everyone. They are pre-academy webinars, and they are definitely part of what you need to know to get your full knowledge and education from the academy. I think what we're probably going to wind up doing is if we're overloaded with questions, the people who are registered for the academy and are alumni from previous years will have first opportunity to talk to our experts then
I'm
if
sure
there's
there'll be
time,
a ton of questions next week. So,
that's what I think is going to happen.
Yeah.
We're probably going to need to put that on because of the sheer volume of questions we'll have for Carl.
cool. I think we're caught up on questions. If I missed your question, put it in the chat again. I'm sorry. I don't think I missed anything though, and we should be good to go.
Okay, well, thank you all for being on, and I hope you really get how easy this is, and I hope you get that it's not a good idea just to buy one note in your IRA and just let it sit there. It reminds me about the compost pile where I know someone who I said something about I'm doing vegetable gardening, and I asked about composting, and she said, well, I don't think you'd want any of our compost pile. My husband's doing it, and it smells pretty bad, and it's full of bugs. And I thought, because they just dump stuff in the backyard. You don't want your IRA to be like that, okay? And so you need to have a plan on what kind of notes are you going to put in there? What are you going to do with it? Are there things that you can do to massage those notes, to make that more valuable, to turn your money, to recycle your money quicker and quicker? And so I hope you got that from this. And if it's not an early payoff, there's lots of other things that I teach, using borrowing money, or doing the option and selling parts of note. What I love to do is take a regular note that maybe would be like a $5,000 profit if I flipped it, and figure out how I can turn that into a $20,000 profit. And that's the kind of stuff that I do with the options that we're going to go over on Sunday at the Academy. So there's lots of different ways. I'm really glad you're on tonight. I hope you can make it to the Academy. I love seeing all of your faces again, and really look forward to working with you. Okay. Good night, everybody. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Donna.